Periods. The man of the hour.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Not too much. How are you?
Wonderful. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, yep.
Great.
Got a few more people joining on. I know that.
Test. Is it okay if I test sharing my screen here?
Yeah, absolutely.
I pop up and you probably see that. I can see that.
You can see that all
Good.
perfectly.
Cool. So yeah, I know there's like an hour and a half that you kind of blocked here. These trainings traditionally run 30 to 60 minutes. Is that
Yep.
okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we had enough time just in
Okay,
case it
cool.
ran long.
Yeah, sure.
We've had a few run long and people only gave an hour. All right, well, I'm gonna turn off my screen and my mic, and I'll let you get going. We are
Okay,
recording, so
cool.
I can send you a copy afterwards too.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
Okay. So, hello everybody. My name is John. I'm here to present on database. As in our world, we think that it's the heart of a big referral business. What I'm just going to kind of go through today is a little bit of, I'll do a brief intro of myself. I'll talk about this guy named Dave Hook and his business journey, the why and what about database, how to actually run it. And then we even leave you with a handbook. It's like a 26-page guidebook that will give you step-by-step instructions on how to start and build and more or less manage your database program. And then we can leave it open for any sort of Q&A. So real quick intro on myself. I was licensed in 2011. I was an independent agent at that time for a few years. Teams were just kind of starting to become a popular thing. I joined what's called the Dave Hook team in I think like early 2015 or 2016. I was his second agent on his team. That team has evolved, has definitely grown. I at one point was like the lead listing agent, sold about 80 units in 1 year for about like 25 million in volume. But then I was promoted to marketing. So I basically took that team's database touch program, revamped it, and now it's just generated millions in GCI each year. We also started what's called Rooted Business Consulting and help agents scale by referral. That said, the main guy that we're here to talk about today is Dave Hook. So Dave Hook is basically, he was originally licensed in early 2000s, like 2001 or 2002 or something. Cool thing was his dad or his grandfather opened up shop. We live in South Central PA, in this small kind of town of Carlisle. And Dave's grandfather opened up shop in 1943. So really cool thing. And then his dad took over in the 50s to like 80s, developed 70% of our area. And then Dave took over in early 2000s. And that's kind of like just more or less him in his prime of that type of type of stage in his career. He was very much prospecting based. He was just working himself to the bone, not necessarily smarter, but just thought, if I just hustle, I'll see some sort of results and success. Ultimately started to lead him to burnout, and he really didn't have any sort of database. This is kind of what that sort of result looked like. I don't know if it's coming across on the photos there, but you can see there's kind of like a vein that's popping and protruding out of his head. Ultimately, stress was getting to him. You can see there, though, in 2012, he had a decent business. 12 million in volume. Profit was about 250,000. Though he was working a bit excessive, so 60 plus hours per week, ranging him about $83 an hour. So that's going to be one little key point that I'm going to note here. We'll kind of pick that up later in the presentation. But he didn't also have any sort of giving program. That's it. Fast forward to today's business. You can see there is 2022 plus. So 2022 was the year that Dave was like the bona fide net a million agent. That's where he saw that that status. Ultimately, though, 100 million plus in volume, over $1 million in profit. It's a really cool thing, though, is you see there, he only spent about an hour and a half a month in his business. Going back where he was working 60 hours a week, now it's an hour and a half a month. You can see that drastically changed his hourly rate, right? From about $83 an hour to about $44,000 an hour. So, and also that team now consistently for the last 6 or 7 years, I think, have been giving away somewhere around like $50,000 to $100,000 to a nonprofit within their database as well. So. How? So what sort of changed from this sort of mindset and type of business to this, right? Ultimately, it's the why and the what about database. So if Dave were to attribute some, his success and any sort of reasoning around that, it would be mainly he would blame it on his database. So that said, why? So why database? What's so important? What's so just good about the results and that sort of thing? But ultimately, it's pre-built trust. So and I'll kind of dive a little bit deeper on each of these. But ultimately, it saves you 5 to 6 hours per cold lead. So if you are more or less generating, and there's nothing wrong with like web-based or internet-based lead systems, but just know that you're likely going to have to spend some time for them to get some sort of familiarity with you and your brand. And what we've learned over the last couple decades is that it takes about 5 to 6 hours per lead. Okay, so working your database saves you that energy up front. Scalability, what we've learned that 60 touches ultimately reaps us about 1 in 10. So for every 10 people on our list of know, like, and trust, 60 touches will, net us 1 transaction. So what I mean by, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. I know some of you may have read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, so the Red Book that Gary Keller wrote about 20 some years ago. I think that one tells us that for every 12 people on our list, we should see two results, so 2 transactions, or a 1 in 6. So this one's a little bit more, the results aren't as heavy as the 1 in 6, but a 1 in 10. I'll explain a little bit more about that as well. It's got the highest return on investment and energy. Again, you can zero cost it by partnering with people in your community, and it's also, again, pre-converted. And then it should just amplify everything else. By starting with a database touch program, you essentially make yourself omnipresent. So if your consumers are seeing, looking for some sort of brand or something awareness, they're going to see your name, brand, and face everywhere. Okay. So then the what? How do I actually do that? Basically, it's 3 steps: build, feed, and communicate. And I'll dive a little bit deeper into that too. So going back to this pre-built trust thing, I'm gonna give you a quick short story here. Whenever Dave Hook started his real estate business, his grandfather opened up shop in 1943. His dad took over, for 30 years in our area from the 50s to 80s, and then Dave opened up shop in the early 2000s. Based on that legacy, he just expected his phone to ring off the hook. So when he opened up his office, he just thought they would be super busy. The problem was nothing happened. The phone didn't ring at all. So he's like, well, I got to do something. So he basically started door knocking. Okay, so he door knocked three of his most closest neighborhoods to him and his family. Um, and eventually, after about 2 years, he developed a list of 250 people that knew him, liked him, and trusted him. So that would be him kind of knocking on doors in the rain. He thought it was a cool and efficient thing, so he strapped on rollerblades at one point. And people are like, "You got to be kidding me, Dave! You're still at this, knocking on my door, just trying to offer me some sort of value in my home ownership experience, right?" But ultimately, it led him to about 250 people in his list. The thing is, it cost him about 1,250 hours. And if you would have multiplied that by his hourly rate back in that day, about $83 per hour, he essentially lost almost $104,000 of his time to kind of, again, convert a cold list to know, like, and trust him. What we've learned is out of those 250 people, on average, it took about 5 to 6 hours per person for him to develop that trust. Instead, what he should have done was just sat down with, I know it's very boring and monotonous, unsexy work, but ultimately, if he would have just sat down and time blocked 10 hours, 10 hours is probably a heavy lift, but regardless, even if it was 10 hours to generate that list of 250 people and just ask himself, who is my spouse's best friend, or who was my parents' friends? Who was the person that married my spouse and I? Who does my wife's hair? All this stuff. So all these people that are already in your world, that already know, like, and trust you. If you would have just sat down as a disciplined kind of, system there, he would have spent about 10 hours of his own time, saving him hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's it. It's very crucial to kind of sit down and put your list together. Some ROIs options here, so we can, these are dynamic, so these aren't necessarily to kind of be set in stone, but just some examples of the different types of ROIs that we see from different lead sources. So OpCity or Realtor.com, you can see that really didn't perform for us. That was like a 1-to-1 whenever they switched from Realtor.com to OpCity. Zillow, we still do see a decent return to that where we don't turn it off. Expired FSBOs, they kind of range based on the inventory levels as well. Database, though, you can see 32 or 31 to 1. So significant ROI versus all of our other lead sources. Scalability, as I mentioned, kind of with the MREA and the Red Book, Gary Keller tells us that, if we do it, and now it's only 33 touches, if we did everything in our power to place 33 touches of our name, brand, and face in front of our audience, that we've done enough to more or less capture and retain their mind share to think of us, so we can net 2 transactions for every 12 people in our list. So Dave had the opportunity actually to talk to Gary Keller about this. So I think it was 2 years ago, 2023, Dave met with Gary Keller on the main stage at Mega Camp. And they had a discussion around database. They put together a one-pager on how to help people with their databases. And Dave asked Gary, he's like, you guys, I'm just really, I mean, we've seen a tremendous success from our database. However, my numbers are just not as good as the MREAs. Gary, can you tell me what I may be doing wrong to potentially get that? So I'm seeing 1 in 6 versus 1 in 10. And Gary told us, he's like, if Jay Papasan and I were to rewrite that book today, it would probably be closer to a 1 in 10, because when we originally wrote the MREA, that was prior to us like getting ads and that sort of thing on our phones, right? So there's just so much more noise out there, so many more people trying to pay and compete for our attention, that it's going to take a little bit more. So ultimately, it is probably closer to a 1 in 10. The year that Dave's team hit the net $1 million status, that year they did about 350 transactions. However, half of them came from their database. They had about 1,800 people in their database, and they saw about 175 units from that source itself. Amplification, so this is just a support that ultimately, there's all sorts of other lead aggregators or just systems or methods to generate database referrals. But just know it starts with your main stuff, and then everything else is amplified. So things like social media, radio, billboards, paid leads, so like your pay-per-click, or Zillow even, Google, etc. Ultimately, the database allows you to become omnipresent in your communities. Any questions on any of that as I start to get into the actual training of how to build, feed, and communicate with your databases? Yeah. Anybody? Okay, cool. So that said, there's three steps to this whole program. The first one starts with build it. As I mentioned, this is the unsexy work where Dave potentially wasted $4,000 of his time, 1,200 some hours, versus just sitting down and kind of doing this. So what we, so ultimately the build it phase is, who do you already know, like, and trust? That's ultimately what we want. We want to get everybody that is in that world into a list to start, okay? So process. Time block, 2-3 hour time blocks somewhere, if that's in, at the end of this week, or, a time where you're going to have the energy to do this. Prepare a spreadsheet. So we don't really coach, or we don't really talk about any sort of CRMs specifically. All sorts of CRMs do, multiple different things. Our 2 cents on CRMs is, the one that works for you is the best one. But ultimately, you still have to get their information into something. So we're just going to use a spreadsheet for now. Gather METs. So I'm going to take you through some examples here of how to generate these names and that sort of thing. But ultimately, you want to collect all the contact information as possible. Once you do that, then you're going to connect and apologize. So we can show you some scripts, text messages, and that sort of thing that you can get a permission-based way of providing them with value throughout each month. And then ultimately, once that's all done, then you can import tag them into whatever CRMs you guys are using. So that said, step one, build it. So ultimately, it starts off with a spreadsheet, right? So these columns here are traditionally what any sort of email platforms or printing kind of protocols. So if you're sending stuff to a printer or something, this is how they'll want their information formatted. But ultimately, first name, last name, phone number, email, mailing address, city, state, and zip code. Okay, so if you can generate that to begin with. And then as you kind of scour some resources, you're just going to start adding them to the spreadsheet. So, for example, so we do this training a lot, and it's sometimes a little bit more interactive, but this is a spot where I ask people, if you were to go to your phones and just essentially like look at the contacts, like how many contacts are in your phones? We hear numbers all over the board, anywhere from a couple hundred, maybe to like 8,000 or something, So that's the first place to start. Thank you, Jason. Yeah. So tons of people in that option. And then, so that's one. And then the other thing is, so like your email platform. So traditionally, I know I'm going to use Gmail here, but if you just start typing A, so like all the A last names that pop up, type B, check with all the B's that pop up. So then adding them in your spreadsheet. LinkedIn and Facebook still offer contact information. You can still get phone numbers and email addresses from some of your clients or your contacts. LinkedIn as well, they also offer that. And then this Exhibit A thing here is pretty cool. So I touched on this briefly about like, who's already in your world that can be automatically added into the database. And these are people that you take for granted, to be honest with you. But I think this questionnaire came from Bold, but ultimately, who is your dentist? Who's your child's dentist? Who's your doctor? Who's your spouse's or partner's doctor? So it literally takes you through an exercise and asks you 150 questions to instantly get 150 people into your list of know, like, and trust. So again, this is shared with you. And then, so you get all that information, and then to find mailing information, what we found is the easiest. And now this is just a snapshot of what our local MLS system looks like. So it's likely that yours is going to look different. But ultimately, what I found is easiest is so you're likely to have a ballpark idea of what city your contacts live in, right? So then you check in the city and then you check by their last name. It's likely you're going to get probably a handful, maybe a couple dozen or so still, of options. And then you just got to weed through them. Well, I know they're somewhat in this location, and that's probably them. Yep. And look, there's their spouse added to that listing as well. So that does confirm that that's them. And then you put them in the spreadsheet. The apology. So now that you have all the information and you're starting to get your list together of people that, hey, I'm going to, essentially apologize for not staying, in touch with them with valuable information. And here's kind of an idea what this script's going to look like. So I am going to read this. So bear with me here. Probably going to butcher it, but just to kind of give you an idea of what this message is trying to portray. So it says, hey, so-and-so, this is me from so-and-so brokerage, or you just might know me as so-and-so. I know this is a bit of a random call, but I just came across something in the real estate industry that really stuck with me. And I wanted to check in with people I know in the area. Do you have a quick minute? And they answer, sure, yeah, that's great. Okay, great. I was talking with this other person and they mentioned that they see it as their job to be a free resource to people, not just when they're looking to buy or sell, but for anything home related. That could be with helping find a great mortgage lender, recommending a reliable plumber, or even just sharing market updates. It hit me that I haven't done the best job of that, and I wanted to change that. Since you're someone that I'd love to stay connected with, would it be okay if I sent some occasional market updates or useful homeowner tips and just check in a couple times a year? And they traditionally would say yes. Awesome. While I have you, do you have any market questions or anything I can help with you today? And then you can kind of go in, no problem, and then you get them their list, and then you can go into like the FORD kind of acronym, so FORD, so family, occupation, recreation, dreams, and just kind of be more personalized with it, right? If you're one that's a little bit kind of scared to call people, we even have a text message here for you. So basically the same kind of dialogue. So I'd say, hey, you have a second? Sure. I just talked with a mentor of mine, and I think I can do a better job for people I care about. He blew my mind. Instead of just working for people when they're trying to pay him, he sends 200 of his closest people a few things each year or each month that actually help with their living in their homes, regardless of whether or not they're staying there or moving in the future. And I made a list, and you're on it. I want to do what he does for my people. There's nothing you need to do or pay for it. And if it's not value, I can take you off at any time. So right there is more or less your permission, right? Is it okay to include you? And then once you get the permission, then you can import all that information, tag them however it might be, some sort of way of including the word database, or so you're aware that this is your database. And then they get added to your CRM. So the next part, so that's just the initial kind of, again, that's where Dave more or less wasted a couple years of his time instead of just sitting down for a couple hours and kind of going through that exercise. That said, the scalability of it is all on the feed it, okay? So who else knows you, likes you, and trusts you, right? So these are people that you more or less come in contact with throughout each month, any sort of new people that you sign, or just new networking people, or you're just like, oh my gosh, I just realized I never had so-and-so on my list and they should have been in there because obviously they love me. All right. So that said, for this, I would more or less suggest that you time block 1 hour at the end of each month and set it to recurring and just more or less call it monthly contact management. So again, feed, like who am I going to add to my list this month in order to attempt to get an extra 10 people in there so I get another extra transaction, right? That's pretty much it. And then the final thing is communicate. So now that I built the initial list, I'm going to be adding to it each month. Again, scalability. How do I get another 10 people in there? But that said, now what am I supposed to actually say to my list of people so they stay in my world, right? So ultimately, the first thing I have here plugged is Dave's headshot. Okay, so Dave's headshot and his logo, his name. Just know that the whole process with this has to include name, brand, and face. Name, brand, and face must be plugged on everything that you send out. Okay, it's just part of, unfortunately, it's part of the programming of your business. That said, other ways that we communicate with our audience on the Dave Hook team are in the form of these things. So 12 direct mail pieces. So we send out postcards and newsletters. They vary in months. Direct items, so direct mail items of value. So additional direct mail pieces. However, they stick. So they're promotional. They come with a cover letter, envelope, and that sort of thing. And they likely have a magnet or something tied to them. So not only are they seeing this brand's name, brand, and face, at least 60 times throughout the year, but now they're stuck to their refrigerators and they're seeing their name, brand, and face every single day. 36 emails per year, so 3 per month. Listings, videos, educational based, authority based content, and then we kind of end it with what's called an alt text. So pain, pleasure, how you can help them, and how they can get in touch with you. Story, events, getting somebody face to face, and then database calls. Right. So probably the biggest thing that all agents and team members do not like is the call, because they don't necessarily know what the call about. Like, how I just don't want to sell. I'm just going to ask them for something. But ultimately with this one, this is about a 60 touch system. So there's ultimately 56 reasons you can call your database just to get their feedback on what's going on. Okay, but they definitely need to hear from you. Some examples of what all that content sort of looks like, right? So again, name, brand, face, you can see that's everywhere, it's plastered. So nobody's going to be confused on who this is, right? And its consistency is key as well. But that said, email. So there's basically 2 things we've realized that consumers want in today's world. One, inventory is limited, so they want access to all inventory they can get their hands on. And 2, with equity being about, I think average homeowners in the U.S. have about 50% in equity in their homes. With that being so high, the click of a button, people want instant, valuations on their properties. So listings would be the first type thing that we're going to give them because it's what they want. Then the second email is more or less just an educational based video. So we answer questions that our clients are kind of, any sort of issues or any struggles that they're feeling in this current market. We just more or less answer questions directly to them and provide them to them. And then the last email we sent out, you can see there's not really any kind of graphical stuff there. It's just all copy, taking somebody through a pain, pleasure story and how you can help and get in touch. Direct mail. I know direct mail is one of those things that a lot of people are a little afraid of because obviously you got the cost to print it, potentially the cost to design it, and then the cost to mail it, so postage. I can tell you, I got into the design world a little bit after like high school and that sort of thing. But I also got into it whenever web design was becoming somewhat popular. So I got into an industry where they said print was a dinosaur and it was dying. I can tell you, since I got into the real estate industry, print has done dramatic results for this team and also a lot of our clients. So we definitely still heavily invest in that. Events that allows you to get face to face. So you got to realize, so there's 4 different types of media here, and it's coming from an air, land, and sea approach, right? Here's the thing. People prefer to be communicated with one version versus the next. I'm one of those people that don't really like email, so I'll probably unsubscribe. Nothing against you or your business or what you're providing to me. I just don't like email because I don't like notifications. That's the issue. I like to delete. I like a 0 inbox. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with you. So I'm probably going to be the ones that if I'm in your database, I'm going to unsubscribe. That said, I would prefer things tangible in my hands that I can read through, if I got a printed piece from you, or the events that allows you to get face to face with your people, right? So in the event that somebody unsubscribes from your email, or they do see your direct mail pieces, but they're only getting the impressions of it because they're like standing over your mail, the trash or something, and they have a stack of mail and they see the name, brand, and face, but they get the impression. It's absorbed before they trash it or something. But there might be people that love to be face to face. Those are the people that are going to attend your events. So we recommend at least scheduling quarterly events. We help a lot of our clients get those sponsored too. So none of our clients really pay for events if that's kind of a concern on costs and that sort of thing. So that's an option, that you can help get things zero costed. And then ultimately we also send out quarterly items of value. As I mentioned kind of in my earlier kind of dialogue here, these are things that stick. So things that are going to be, and it's hard to probably see, but the first one here is like what we call a referral directory. Is kind of our version of a yellow pages. We also have what's called a brand ambassador program. So we have about 25 small local businesses that are tied into the database of the Dave Hook team that basically contribute to all the Dave Hook team's marketing dollars. So 25 small local businesses paying anywhere from about $90 to $250 each, contribute to the reach and all the marketing expenses that the team has, ultimately eliminating them. So that first doc there is more or less a yellow pages outlining all the people that are in that program, and then even including some smaller businesses in this community. And it's like a mail, like a calendar mailer, just an example of like a cover letter. These are a little bit more bona fide packages, and then like a market perspective. So we take Gary Keller's vision speech. It's probably February, March, April, or that type of time. And we take his slides and that sort of thing and just put together a piece to show our consumers what the market's going to perform like that year. So, but again, name, brand, and face is more or less plastered on everything. And then to kind of follow up with that, the boring kind of thing where people don't really like to call, or they don't have more or less confidence to call. There's all sorts of things that you can talk about that will provide value to your people to allow that guard to come down. And traditionally, the reason that guard is up is because you just don't really know what to say. And it's a pretty simple thing. You just got to come from contribution, and not always just kind of, if you're calling to invite somebody to an event or something, saying, hey, love you family has supported our business for umpteen years, and we're so grateful for that. We're hosting this event at, it's coming up here in about 4 weeks. I'd love for your family to kind of attend. Can I mark you down for an RSVP? Oh, and by the way, who do you know that might be, if you're looking, anybody that's looking for the same sort of experience we provided to you? Do you know of anybody that might be looking to buy or sell in the next 6 months? And then again, any sort of the apology, home ownership, and we can give you all those. They're all included in. This is where I said I was going to leave you with a guidebook. So here is that 26-page database lever guidebook. It goes through the database philosophy. It talks about the strategy of build, feeding, and communicating with it. Gives you step-by-step instructions on how to build it, even little check boxes to make sure you're doing the things that you're supposed to. Feed it and then communicate. So this is for a 36-touch plan. At I would say kind of like a beginning type of agent's career, there's probably not much needed as far as budget in this. This allows you to get in front of your people for very, very, very little cost. Some handwritten notes even it suggests. And then here's again where all those dialogues were that I just mentioned here. In the event that you're not sure what to say, this will give you everything you need. So that said, that's basically what we have. Some of our people that we do this for are just like, hey, John, that's great. I don't have time to do that, but I absolutely need that. Is there anything that you can potentially offer? We do have a done for you system. We have a slew of different options. So in the event that hey, I don't want to full-blown events, print, items of value and that sort of thing, there are some smaller touch systems that we offer. You can just simply visit rootedbc.com and schedule a time with me if you need to discuss. Not only that, I'm very much open to database audits. So if you're just like, John, I want to do this on my own, but can you kind of just review what I do now and see if there's any things that you might be able to optimize for me, or at least suggest to optimize for me? And I'm happy to do that. I'm an open book. And then, so we also have thick skin. We do this multiple times, per month. So just in the event that you can leave us a little bit of feedback on today's training, that would be great, because it just allows us to kind of optimize things for the future. So. Any questions?
No questions. Thank you, John. Anyone else have any questions?
Anybody have any feedback on if this might work for any of your businesses?
I don't know if anyone's going to chime in. They're a quiet bunch when we present
Okay.
too.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll leave it at that then. I hope you guys got some value out of this. If you guys have any questions or anything leading up, follow up. I'm just again happy to kind of answer. I'm an open book. So
Appreciate it.
yep. Okay.
You have a great day.